Well, thank you, Dr. Gill. You know, I wasn't so sure that he was going to read that. I wrote it up last night, and I wasn't so sure he was going to go through with that. So thank you for the kind introduction. And wow, what a week this has been. Nancy and I arrived here on Tuesday. And Tuesday night, we had a dinner with the president, and we met with students. The next day, I was in the classroom all day and had a fantastic time. And I was with development yesterday, admissions, marketing. I think I've seen everything on campus. Nancy had a 6-hour tour of Canton and the campus here. So we feel so very welcomed, and we're just honored to be here. And special thanks to President Thompson. We had a wonderful lunch in Chicago. What was it, last summer?
Yes, sir.
And she asked me to be leader in residence, and we talked about what it was about. And I asked her, I said, have you checked my academic record? She said, well, no, I haven't. I said, well, good, I'll be there. So here we are. So are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. Are you ready or not? Okay, I want you to be ready. You know, someday you're not going to be here. And you're going to graduate, and you'll trot up and get your diploma up the stairs, and then you'll start to walk off. And then you walk off into your new life. Are you ready?
No.
Well, what I would like to know is what your decisions are going to be and what kind of choices will you make. And those choices really determine who you are as a person. There's 3 things that I would like to cover today. One is, I would like to inspire you to make great choices in your life, and how the great choices that you make affect you every day, and it will for the rest of your life. Because making great choices is what matters. Secondly, I would like to demonstrate to you how adversity in your life, and we all have adversity, will create a stronger and a better you. I can promise that. And then third, convince you that to always be proactive. Being proactive can save your life. So, I was sitting right where you are in 1968. What year was your mother born?
1968.
1968. Okay, we'll put that into perspective. Okay, so I was from Chicago, so I thought I was pretty savvy. And I was well-traveled. I'd been to Wisconsin and Michigan and Indiana. And on the way here, I came through Iowa and then to Missouri. So I lived in Shannon Hall. They said it was a river view, but it was more of a parking lot view. Are you in Shannon Hall? So I had the parking lot view on the first floor. The smart kids were upstairs. And there was about 4 or 5 of us that hung out together, and we became pretty good friends. And we went to class together. We went to the events together. And we just had a lot of fun. And we took advantage of every moment that we were here. But there was one thing lacking. Now, this was 50 years ago, and that's the food. The food, you know, I think it was just too healthy. You know, we like to have the greasy hamburgers, the greasy fries, and they didn't have the greasy hamburgers or fries here. But the 5 of us were resourceful, and we found a greasy spoon just on the other side of the stoplight. Now, I'll kind of put this into perspective. The summer before I came here, I worked the entire summer, and I had earned $200. The deal I had with my parents was they'd pay the tuition, room, and board of $1,800 a year. But I had to pay for my spending money and my books. So I had $200 to last me the entire year. Now, I was good at math, so I knew that was $100 for the first semester and $100 for the second semester. I had this figured out. So the 5 of us, we had a great fun. And I had a checkbook. My dad gave me my first checkbook, and he told me how to handle the checkbook. So, you know, when you wrote a check, you put down cash, $3.50. cash, $3. Well, since we didn't like the food and we had all this money, I kept my checkbook right here. We decided we got to find someplace else to eat. So we went to the Greasy Spoon on the other side of Old 61, on the other side of the stoplight by the bank there, and they had the best hamburgers and the best fries in town. I think they were the only hamburgers and french fries in town. But it was good. You know the kind, when you eat the hamburger, the grease just kind of comes out. You wipe it off with your mouth. Those were great hamburgers. So about 4 days a week, we'd go down there, and I'd write the check, $3.50. Give it to the cashier. She'd give you change back. You'd put it in your pocket. That gave you the money for your Coke and your candy bar for breakfast. Didn't it work out well? Well, I was very good at writing down the check numbers in my book. So I read check 101, $3.50, September 22nd. Check number 102, $3, September 23rd. Well, come November, I thought, maybe I didn't have anything better to do. I thought I'd better add this up and see where we are. Now, I'm good at math. And we didn't have calculators back then, so you had to do this in longhand. So I added all this up, and I got to the bottom. It was not good. So I thought I must have made a mistake. I added it up again. I came up with the same number. My friends were in identical situations. I was broke. I had about $80 left for the whole year. Now, I'm good at math, and I had this figured out. That meant $40 for the rest of the year and $40 for the next semester. We were in trouble. It's called a Yogi Berra moment. Do you know who Yogi Berra is? He was a baseball player. He wasn't a very good baseball player, but he had a lot of sayings, and I think my favorite saying is, when you come to a fork in the road, take it. And that's what we had to do, not by choice, because we had to. We had to make some hard decisions. And up to that point in my life, that was probably the most gut-wrenching event that I've ever had. I remember it to this day, for years and years afterwards, sitting in my parking lot room at Shannon Hall. Well, it's very interesting how our friends all handled the situation. We had one of our pals that just gave up. He quit. And I remember talking to him. He said, well, what do you mean you quit? He says, look, I came out here. I shouldn't have come out here. I had a good job that was paying $3.50 an hour, and now I'm here at college and I'm broke. I quit. And he did. And a week later, the dean came by the dorm, and we threw a suitcase in the back, and they drove out to Quincy, got an airplane, flew back to the East Coast, and we never saw him again. Another one of our pals, he was just ambivalent. He just didn't have any reaction to it at all. I think he could have won the lottery, and he wouldn't have had any type of reaction. And he just kind of drifted on. We never heard much about him, but he stayed in school. I don't know whatever happened to him. But the three of us sat down. We thought, we've got to come up with a solution. What are we going to do? Well, we came up with a brilliant solution. I still think it's brilliant to this day. We'd sell our blood. Now, bear with me. Bear with me. Think about this. You have an asset flowing through your veins, and you can take out a unit of blood and sell it, and a month later, it comes all back. And you can sell it again. So we'd hitchhike into Quincy, and we'd go to the hospital and present ourselves at the blood bank and say, we're here, we want to sell our blood. They'd stick a needle in our arm. They'd take out a unit of blood. 2 days later, we had a check in the mail. Now, I'm good at math. And I knew that $25 a month, I was rich. I was in Fat City, and I was glad of it. But I think the point to all of this is that you have to make decisions, and you have a choice to be proactive in your decisions or not. I've come to the conclusion, I think there are three types of people in this world. One is, I call these people in the winner's circle. And I think you're all in the winner's circle, by the way. But they're proactive. They're smart. They're articulate. They're the people that just make things happen. I mean, you know who they are. You see them on campus every day. They make things happen. And then you got another group. I call them the monitors. And the reason I call them the monitors is because they monitor everything. They're the ones that'll come into your office and say, "Hey, Dan, we got a problem." And I'll say, "Well, what are you doing about it?" And they say, "Well, I don't know." And then you have a third group that they don't know what's going on when stuff is going on around them. And I think all of you are in that first group. And the third group, I call that the Kidney Stone School of Self-Management. You know what their motto is? "This too shall pass." Trust me, there's people like that. February 21st, 2009 was a very significant day for Nancy and myself. It was, remember going to bed, it was a foggy night, and everything was completely normal. And at 3:13 in the morning, I woke up, and I looked over to the clock, and I'll never forget looking at that clock, and I didn't feel so good. So, okay, and I got up, and after that, I didn't remember anything. The next thing I remember was Nancy standing over me, talking on the phone, and there was two paramedics. One of them was shining a light in my eyes. And I heard one of them say, "He doesn't have any blood pressure." Well, I'm not a medical expert, but I knew that wasn't good. The next thing I remember, I woke up in the hospital. Nancy was there and some friends of ours. And I was okay, but I had a close call. You see, I had liver disease. Specifically, I had liver cancer, HCC. And when you're in liver failure, one of the symptoms that you get, one of the byproducts of having this disease, is that you can bleed internally from the throat. The veins in your throat pop out, they can burst. So I was bleeding from the inside. Most of the time, or a lot of the time I should say, people die when they get into that situation. Now, I was very lucky. I was on the organ transplant list at Northwestern University Hospital in Chicago. And it has a very happy ending. 18 months later, I had a brand new liver, and a liver transplant for what I had as a cure, not a fix, it's an absolute cure, so my liver's younger than yours, some of you. It was the most significant event that I ever had in my life, and certainly the most significant event in Nancy's life. I think when you go through life and things like this happen to you, it changes who you are. Things happen to you, circumstances change, your focus changes, and it really changes who you are. So after my transplant, which was in 2011, I had a very successful transplant. I had researched out everything there was to know about organ transplant, specifically liver transplant and HCC. I reviewed all the medical literature. I reviewed all of the research. And I can tell you I knew more about my situation than any general practitioner in the country because I researched it all out. And I went into the transplant and I was on the table. And it was very interesting because I had no fear. I was educated, I was prepared, I knew exactly what would happen, and between my knowledge and my faith in God, I knew everything was going to be okay. And it was. So after the transplant, Northwestern asked me if I would chair an organ transplant initiative. And I said, well, sure. I mean, you guys saved my life. You have to help out. And I said, well, tell me what it's all about. And they gave me a model that was used in other institutes of medicine. And I looked at it and I thought, well, I didn't think it really met the needs of the patient or the institution. It was kind of generic. And I looked at it and I said, well, I'll tell you what, let me study this. I think what I'll do, I'd like to put a team together and come back with some kind of alternative that we think might be better. So with a few other transplant recipients, we sat down and we decided, let's start Transplant Village. Transplant Village is a nonprofit, and now it's in its 6th year of being. And we operate on 3 pillars within the organization. One is we raise money for organ transplant research for Northwestern. We want that center to be the #1 center in the entire country, and we can do that if we continually attract the best and the brightest doctors, clinicians, and surgeons. And we formed a 3-way partnership between the medical institution, the foundation, and the patient population, eliminating the silos that go along with that in order to do that. The second thing we do is awareness. You can go on our website and find out all about organ transplant. We have a buddy program, so if somebody's having an organ transplant, we hold their hand through the entire process. We're their buddy, and we stick with them from beginning to end. The other thing we do is we help people find organs. You see, you have 2 kidneys. You could give one to somebody else. You have a spare. You hear about the organ shortage all the time. Everybody's heard about the organ shortage. Well, we're trying to change that discussion because we don't think there's an organ shortage. We think that there is an allocation issue. We think that it's not a problem of scarcity, but it's a problem of allocation and abundance. Because anybody in this room could give up a kidney and live a perfectly normal life, or a piece of your liver, and donate that to somebody that needs a liver, and it all grows back. My daughter is in this with me. She's our communications chair, and she donated a kidney to a stranger a year and a half ago. We still don't know who it is to this date. Her kidney was flown to Houston. That person had a non-compatible donor, and that donor's kidney was flown to California and started what's called a chained event. And there is 8 lives that we know of so far that happened from that event. So we're saving lives. It's a pretty neat thing to be able to talk to somebody and help them through the process or help them find organs. But the point of all this is that we made some choices and we made some decisions. We could have just sat on our hands and do nothing, or we could decide that we wanted to make a difference in this world. And that's what we chose to do. There's a very interesting person that I worked with, His name was George. Nancy remembers George. George needed a liver. Now, I talked to scores of transplant patients, so I take great notes, but I have trouble remembering their names, as some of you know. And so I code them in my phone. So my phone might ring and it might say, Sally, red hair, kidney. And then it'll jog my memory. So, hi Sally, red hair, kidney, how are you? And I'll remember everything about her. One day, I got a call and it said, George, gray hair, liver. I thought, George, gray hair, liver? I'm losing my mind. I couldn't remember who this guy was. And I'm going through my mind. So finally I answered the phone. I thought, well, I'll say something safe. So I said, well, hi, George. How are you? What's happened since the last time we talked? And he says, well, Dan, things aren't going too good. And then I remembered who he was. He and his wife had come to our house a year earlier, and we met them. And Nancy and I sat down in our sunroom. We had coffee with him. And I wrote out a road map of all the things that he had to do to save his life. Everything that he had to do in order to live. And he really wasn't listening too much, and I don't follow up with these people. If they want to talk to me, that's fine. I don't want to intrude on their private life. But I remembered him and his wife. We had a mutual friend. He was referred to me by a mutual friend. So I said, George, I said, well, where are you now? And he says, well, I'm at MD Anderson. And I said, well, what's going on at MD Anderson? That's probably one of the best cancer hospitals in the world. He said, well, my cancer is spread. And I said to him, well, so what'd you do since the last time we talked? And he says, well, I should have done what you told me to do. I always knew in life and business, it's very interesting, but you can draw out a roadmap for somebody and show a path from A to B. And at B, the rainbow ends and there's a pot of gold. And you can show most people a map and they won't even follow it. But I had no idea somebody wouldn't follow that if it would save their life. George chose his path, and it was a little bit devastating to me. Our mutual friend called me up, and he says, Dan, he says, I feel so bad. I just found out George died. And I knew he was pretty close to death. And he says, I just feel awful. There's more that I could have done. And I said, no, John, stop. No. George made his decisions. He made no decision. And no decision was his decision. So, there are a lot of Georges in this world. I know you're not one of them. I do know that the people in this room are in the winner's circle. And you want to stay in the winner's circle. But there's 3 parts to the winner's circle. One part is the winner's circle. The next part is the super winner's circle. And the next part is the super duper winner's circle. So, which one are you in? If you're in the super, don't you want to be in the super duper? So what decisions are you going to make in your life? And how are you going to react to these situations as you get older? And how do you think that will affect you the rest of your life? From my experience, I can tell you how it affected me, and I hope that helps you. I want to end today. It's a short, mini, itty-bitty essay. I need my glasses. It's called What Will Matter. It actually came from a leadership institute, and Actually, this inspired my talk for today, but I'll end by reading it. Ready or not, someday it will all come to an end. There will be no surprises, no minutes, hours, or days. All the things that you collected, whether treasured or forgotten, will pass to somebody else. Your wealth, fame, and power will shrivel to irrelevance. It will not matter what you owned or what you were owed. Your grudges, resentments, frustrations, and jealousies will finally disappear. So too, your hopes, ambitions, plans, your to-do lists will expire. The wins and losses that once seemed so important will fade away. It won't matter where you came from or what side of the tracks you lived on. What will matter, it won't matter whether you were beautiful or brilliant. Even your gender or skin color will be irrelevant. So what will matter? How will the value of your days be measured? What will matter is not what you bought, but what you built. Not what you got, but what you gave. What will matter is not your success, but your significance. What will matter is not what you learned, but what you taught. What will matter is every act of integrity, compassion, courage, or sacrifice that enriched or empowered or encouraged others to emulate your example. What will matter is not your competence, but your character. What will matter is not how many people you knew, but how many people will feel a lasting loss when you're gone. What will matter is not your memories, but the memories that live in those that loved you. What will matter is not how long you will be remembered, but by whom and for what. Living a life that matters doesn't happen by accident. It's not a matter of circumstance, but of choice. Choose to live a life that matters. Thank you and God bless. So please forgive me if I keep looking down at your kidneys. It's just, I really apologize. But I'm happy to take any questions that any of you might have. I hate to, I did this in class. I had to call on you. I don't want to call on you, so somebody raise their hand. Come on. Back there.
You talked about your time at Culver, and I want to know specifically what changes have you enjoyed seeing from your time to now?
Oh boy. Okay, so just, I'm good at math. 50 years ago was a half a century ago. Okay, that's a long time. We've been married 45 years. The day I arrived on campus, her mother was born. So you can't compare today with when I arrived here on campus. Although some of my trademarks are still in my room in Shannon Hall. But I was here 10 years ago when Bill Fox was president, and I had a chance to meet the staff and meet the students 10 years ago. And it is not the same institution. This will probably be the last time you're at a place that's all about you. But I have to tell you, this place is very special. I know that you know that. But I am so impressed with the students. My generation is turning things over to you. And I have to tell you, I feel pretty good about it. Now, we're leaving you with a few messes, but I have high confidence that you'll just fix all of this so we can collect our Social Security. Does that answer your question? Anybody else?
So besides my liberal arts education, what's like the most important thing I can take from my college adventure?
How to think on your feet and how to treat others. Leadership, everybody's a leader. I was in one class, and there was one student, she's going to be a third grade teacher. I don't, maybe she didn't think of herself as a leader, and I said, well, wait a second, how many of you guys have had a bad teacher somewhere along the chain, and what kind of damage did that do? And everybody raised their hand. Well, you don't want to be that kind of a teacher. You want to be the type of teacher. I remember my third grade teacher. She had a significant effect on me. So that's leadership. And this is a leadership group, so, you know, be a leader, be bold. Go out and make a difference. You'll make mistakes. Oh, I have a long list of mistakes. I have a big long list of mistakes. And that's okay. You learn from your mistakes. And the people that don't make any mistakes, they're not trying. So be a leader, be bold. Who else?
How much does liver cancer test your faith, if at all?
Quite a bit. You wouldn't have found me in church every Sunday. And it does, I think what it does, I think there's a reason for everything. And I truly believe that. There's a reason that I had liver cancer. Maybe it's because of the work that we're doing with a nonprofit. I don't know what it is, but I leaned on my faith. I leaned on my family. It was more difficult for my family than it was for me. But yeah, it tests your faith. But aren't you glad that you got it? Who else?
You talk a lot about passions. How do you put those into your everyday life? Like, how do you continue to have your motivation?
Oh, I never lose it. I mean, and now, you know, in one of our classes, we put up the wheel of, what do we call it? Yeah, the life balance wheel. And you got your faith, you have financial and money, family, friends, and all this on the balance wheel. And I made the comment that I was always out of balance. I think we're all out of balance. Sometimes you got to look at that and say, hey, I got to notch up the faith a little bit, or, you know, I'm broke, I got to notch up the financial a little bit. And I sold a majority share of this last company on June 1st. And I think every other day I say to Nancy, I love my life. There's nothing that I would change. And Nancy and I are just having a ball. We're just having a ball. So I would say I'm doing the things now that I like. I'm here. I want to be here. I'm involved in, I'm on the board of trustees at another college, and I love my work there. I love working with college students. I'm doing exactly what I want to do. And if I don't have to do it, if there's something I don't want to do, I don't do it anymore. So, who else? In the back.
What's your definition of success? Because it's different for everyone.
I can tell you what our company's success is. And that's operating you know, everybody has their ethics bar. Some people are, you know, if it's legal, do it, and you kind of want to stay away from those people. Ours was very high, and there was 3 pillars in our company. You have your team members and your employees, you have your customer, and you have your shareholders. And we were very successful financially, so that wasn't an issue. But everybody was friends. Everybody respected each other. Everybody lived a very different life than they would have if they weren't with our company. So to me, that's success and what you leave as a legacy. I know at your age you may not think about legacy so much, but as you get older, you'll think about legacy, just like our little poem here that I read. And what you leave behind, isn't that what counts and how people remember you? Anybody else? One more.
Something that you know now that you wish you
How much time do you got? The list is way too long. You think you know everything. And the older you get, the more you realize you don't know everything. And you never, ever, ever know what you don't know. So the list is very long. But seriously, being able to work with people, sit down, work out disagreements, sit down face to face. That's, by the way, that's one thing I noticed on this campus. When Nancy and I walk around on campus, you all look us right in the eye. And somebody mentioned at our table at a university school, everybody's down like this all the time. Well, we don't see that here at all. And that's great. And I think that's part of a liberal arts education, because here we're educating not for your job today, but for the job that doesn't exist 20 years from now. That's our job. That's what we have to do here. Well, thank you so much. I can't tell you how honored I am to be here, and I'm just very grateful for your time, and best of luck. Godspeed.
Thank you. We got something for Dan here.
Well, thank you.
A little Culver swag. We want you to wear that at St. Norbert board meetings. So
Okay, we'll see how that goes over.
So thank you.
Dan.
I know a lot of people have sessions to go to, and board members, I know you have a session to go to, but give another round of applause for Dan.